those cases were being challenged. And so we didn't know who was going to come out the winner because there was still litigation ongoing about problems with the election. So if Donald Trump had actually won that litigation, he would have won that state. And so, in order to comply with federal election law that requires the electors to meet on December 14th, the Trump electors met on December 14th to create the Trump slate of electors that could be used in the event that Donald Trump actually was successful in his litigation and won. I mean,
Yep.
that's simple, right?
Yep.
It's been done before. It happened in 1960 when John F. Kennedy originally lost Hawaii to Richard Nixon. He was challenging Hawaii. He created an alternate slate of electors. Ultimately, he was successful, and that alternate slate of electors was the one that was actually counted. So there's historic precedent for it. They followed exactly what Kennedy did in 1960. And according to Arctic Frost, the stuff that came out from Arctic Frost, and what the prosecutors are alleging now, the prosecutors are alleging that that was fraudulent and forgery. We're all charged with 9 felony counts of conspiracy to commit forgery.
Just a quick break in the program to share an incredible offer for you. I know so many people suffer with pain, and you've tried so many things. And I've been covering frequency medicine, and I know it's the future. There's a new device from Medcare called terahertz therapy device that uses a blue light to get deep into your tissue, and it restructures your water. And from studies, it greatly reduces inflammation, and 89% of people over a period of 8 weeks saw a reduction of 70% in pain. That's pretty remarkable. If you're somebody who's suffering from pain and you have not found this kind of relief from, taking these supplements that probably aren't working, you might need to just restructure your cells and deal with the inflammation and the pain at the cellular level. And this device, this blue LED light, is the cutting edge science that they're finding that can really make a difference. If you get it today, you can save 50%. If it doesn't work for you, if you get it and you're like, I really need to deal with my pain, there's 100% money back guarantee. And it's incredible because you can use it daily for joint pain, back, knees, anywhere that you have pain. You can use it to relieve that tension, that inflammation, and get back to living a life that you need. If you are interested in trying it, go to TryMedCare/Sarah and you automatically get that 50% off. You can also read about all the benefits there, like the surprising benefit that also increases your collagen. In studies, they've showed that your collagen increases by 43% after 8 weeks. So again, go to TryMedCare.com/Sarah and save 50% today. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. I have attorney Christina Bobb. She was the former attorney for President Trump. In fact, she was the counsel on record with the Mar-a-Lago raid, and she wrote a book called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid, which you can get at her website or at pretty much anywhere fine books are sold. But she's going to talk about the craziness that happened inside that raid. But we're also going to talk about the lawfare that's going on in this country. I talk about my channel's back up on YouTube because Google admitted in front of Congress that they were indeed coerced by the government. I don't know if people remember, we went to the Ninth Circuit. We went all the way to the federal court and they denied any kind of government coercion. Now they're coming out publicly and saying there was. So they lied to the courts. And that's how they shut down our case, by lying. And now they're admitting it, and they brought all the people who were wrongly taken down for political reasons against the First Amendment. They reinstated our channels. And so I'm happy my channel's back, but I don't want to be suppressed anymore. I don't want to be hurt anymore. And just think of the damage that caused. And so we're going to talk about, that's real lawfare. That's real damage. It's a multi-trillion-dollar corporation. And the very, very powerful, the Justice Department, or the people of the Biden administration, who told them and coerced them to take the people like us down. The most powerful people did that against people like me. I don't have that kind of power. And so the utter bullying and harassment, they accused us of doing all these things, but the bullying and harassment that we just had to suffer through, and average everyday people are dealing with. And she's going to talk about what people are dealing with. I know it's, you hear about Trump and the Mar-a-Lago raid, but the real consequences are what it's doing to this country. And we're going to talk about some of the stuff that she's seen and how incredible it is. I was saying it's one step away because they were intimidating her as a journalist, and Dominion had a $1.6 billion lawsuit against her. In other countries, they kill journalists. Journalists are snuffed out, and that's one step away from taking that extra step. I mean, they're essentially snuffing us out by doing those fear tactics. The next thing is, I don't want to say it, but that's the next stage. And we are dangerously close to becoming a country like that when we allow these people in power to just lie and do whatever with the court system. So this is beyond time for us to have these conversations. And if you are interested in getting that book, I will have the link below. Or again, you can go to ChristinaBobb.com, which is her website. Okay, so let's get into this really good, engaging conversation with Christina Bobb. I think you're really going to like her. You can tell she's just a good person. We need good people in this country. Okay, here is Christina Bobb. Hi, Christina. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm excited to be here.
You have some pretty interesting inside personal experiences with our justice system that people have no idea just how crazy it's become. And you were a former Trump attorney. You worked on the elections, but you saw a lot of other things from the inside. You're now with Judicial Watch. But our country's moved to like post-justice system fairness, right? I mean, we're a lawfare company or country where the system just doesn't operate like it used to, if it ever did, I
Yeah,
guess.
I think that's true. I think what's happening is people inside whatever administration it is, certainly the Biden administration, this is very true. There's arguments about it in the Trump administration, although I think it's significantly less. They're getting bolder and bolder with what they're willing to use the Department of Justice for. And I think, in decades past, people had a lot of, especially people that worked within the department, had a lot of respect for what the department was. They wanted to be seen as impartial. I'm not saying it was impartial, but they at least tried, right? They tried to give that appearance. I think that's out the window. I don't think, at least during the Biden administration, I don't think they were even trying to come across as impartial. In the Trump administration, I think people are arguing, saying that Donald Trump is going after Comey and these folks as retribution. I don't necessarily agree with that, although anytime you have one party going after the other party, there's cause for concern. I think all of these people belong in prison for what they did to our nation, but yeah,
It,
there's a lot to break it down.
well, if they're not taking the Justice Department seriously and they're using it as weaponizing it and going against the Constitution, I know that just a few weeks ago, 3 to 4 weeks ago in Congress, Google admitted to government coercion before the election, and all of our channels were taken down. They reinstated all of us, but it's been 5 years and they finally
Yeah.
admitted to it. We went to court, we're in the Ninth Circuit, and Google said they acted alone, and they weren't acting alone.
Right.
And it's kind of like, at what point do they have to pay for the harm that they did to so many people?
100%. That's exactly right. And what I think the mainstream media is missing when they're talking about this is how much, not just the lawfare, but the actions taken by Google, taken by the Department of Justice, taken by formerly Twitter, now X, is that they're really significantly harming individual people.
That's
This
right.
is not just a campaign, an issue with a campaign. This is not just an issue against a $1 billion company or whatever.
$1 trillion company, yes.
Yes, exactly. They are coming after everyday average Americans, and like all the Arctic frost that's come, all of that information that's coming out recently. I was part of that. I'm kind of in this weird middle place because I worked for Donald Trump. I had a little bit of a platform. Some people who were following Trump closely knew who I was. And, I was kind of wrapped up into that. But really, in reality, at least I felt more just like your everyday American. I don't have a long history in politics. I really kind of fell into it about the 2020 election. And so I feel like I was kind of in the gap between, the everyday American who isn't connected to the president versus, being a presidential associate
Yeah.
of some sort. And so I kind of see it from both angles. And the people that are abusing their power, whether it's the Department of Justice, whether it's Google, whether it's these big companies that want a certain political agenda served, they're doing it at the expense of Americans. And like I mentioned with Arctic Frost, a lot of the targets on that list, there were 400 names on that list. Some of them were organizations, some of them were elected officials, GOP senators and all that. But a lot of them were just GOP volunteers, people who had volunteered to
Ex-
be electors.
Explain what Arctic Frost is for the people who don't know.
Sure. So Arctic Frost was the FBI, DOJ's, that was their code name for the investigation into Donald Trump and his supporters following January 6th, following the 2020 election. And they came up with, and this is all coming out because Senator Grassley had issued a subpoena and he released a lot of the information that DOJ turned over to him. And what the FBI and DOJ did shortly after the 2020 election was they created a hit list of people that they wanted to target and go after with no probable cause. It's not like there was probable cause in these documents saying, hey, it appears that Joe Schmo robbed a bank and we have video surveillance of Joe Schmo robbing a bank. We should go after Joe
What
Schmo.
was the criteria? Simply they supported Trump and they had they had the ability to influence others to support him. Is that what it was?
Well, I mean, that's a great way to summarize it. Yes, that's what they did, but it's not spelled out well in the documents. It's literally a list of names. It's just a list of people that they targeted. And now some of them they go into more detail. Like you have the list, and then there's other documents where they describe, how they're investigating these individuals and what they're doing. But it wasn't kind of like what you're describing, where you find a crime and then you break down how, like, what kind of evidence we want from that crime. No, no, no.
Yeah.
This was it was a hit list. The way I describe it, it's a hit list. And they had a lot of people on there who were just local volunteers of the Arizona GOP, the Nevada GOP. And those volunteers ended up becoming electors. Now, we've all heard about the alternate electors, the left loves to call it the fake electors, all of that. There's nothing fake about it. All of them were lawfully appointed or elected by their party. But at the end of the day, these are just very committed volunteers in their community that want to be part of the political process. And basically, as a reward for being so involved and being such a great volunteers, they get appointed or elected to serve as an elector. It's an honor. It's an absolute
Yep.
honor as a presidential elector. And the DOJ tried to scuttle that. I mean, they tried to scare these people. They targeted all of these electors. I'm still a criminal defendant as we speak out in Arizona. I was never an elector, but I was
You were
associated with Donald Trump.
targeted because you were trying to expose the election
Yeah,
irregularities and stuff. So the thing is there has to be a healthy sense of responsibility and respect for what it is that you have. When you have this much power, when you're the most powerful country in the world, wielding the kind of resources they have. Same with Google and Alphabet, when they are a multi-trillion-dollar company. When you have those kind of resources and you put your might behind going after somebody who is a single individual with zero resources, maybe making, 100,000 a year without any kind of, anything,
yeah,
that is so out of whack. And that's the definition of tyranny and bullying. They're bullying people and it's
100%.
extreme. It's abuse.
It's abuse and it's tragic. I mean, I have friends that have lost their homes. I know people whose relationships have deteriorated because the stress of all of it was
That's
just
right.
so tragic. I'm so fortunate that, at least particularly for the criminal case, I had enough of a platform where people could see me and they could see what was going on. And I had a donor step in to help me with my criminal defense case, which is amazing. They're a godsend. I would have lost everything. I would have lost my home. I would have lost
Yeah. Yeah.
everything. And so I'm really grateful that they stepped in, but a lot of people didn't have that. A lot of people don't have that. And the cases are still ongoing. These cases are still open. And, the media can wag their finger at the folks that were involved in Arctic Frost as much as they want. But until you point out the fact that they are hurting real everyday Americans and these people are still being hurt by it, it's great that you put the stories out there, but it's not doing anything.
Well, and I listen to multiple different things because I want
Yeah.
to understand how they think. So I've been spending some time listening to NPR, and it makes me angry sometimes because I know the backstory on some of these things.
Mhm.
But they just say it as if it's fact that
Yeah.
these people were criminals. And that's evil in and of itself. Evil, I know, is a word that's been overused, but that's almost criminal and
Yeah.
irresponsible. And they act like they care so much about people, but it's the opposite of caring. And I wish the people would understand how their lack of caring
Yeah.
and the hypocrisy of what they're saying and doing. And
Yeah.
it's so important. But that's why freedom of speech is so important, so people can see just
Mhm.
really what these people are doing.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I'm so grateful that you're starting the show with this because so many people, want to start with the Mar-a-Lago raid or start with some of the other more sensational stuff. But in my opinion, and this is what I told the publisher as well, I think this is the most important aspect of the story because it's affecting everyday Americans. The political class is going to do what the political class does. And unless Americans are given the information and given the freedom to actually challenge what the political class is doing, their power goes unchecked. And you're exactly right. It absolutely is criminal. It's not just NPR, lying to the public to sway opinion. They lied to the grand jury. I mean, they told the grand jury that I went to Arizona to hand out ballots and to participate in all of this, and they had zero evidence to support that.
NPR did that?
No, no, no. I'm sorry. The prosecutors did that.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, just comparing. But no, the prosecutors
Yes.
told the grand jury that I went to Arizona and was handing out ballots, which I didn't. In and of itself, I don't see how that's illegal anyway. But I didn't. But I was
Isn't
actually
that fraud on the court? I mean, at what
yes,
point can they just lie to the court and make stuff up to create a
yeah.
story and they don't have to pay for the price
Well, that's the
for
problem. The courts are allowing them to do it, right? The courts are. So my case was filed in April of 2024. So it's been about a year and a half that it's been open. And Arizona is one of, I think it's the only state in the country that has an anti-SLAPP statute for criminal cases, meaning you can bring basically ask the court to dismiss the case because the prosecution was brought for unconstitutional purposes. And so in our case, we all filed an anti-SLAPP motion saying, hey, this case needs to be thrown out because it was brought for political purposes, which is a violation of our constitutional rights. And the court agreed with us, granted the first half of the motion. The second half of the motion, it then shifts to the prosecutors to prove that they did not bring it for political purposes, which is a very, very high bar to prove. The law lays out specific things that they have to prove in order to meet that. And there's not a chance in where that the Arizona prosecutors would be able to prove that. So the court has just never held the second half of the hearing. For a year and a half, it's just lingering open. And
And so
I've,
meanwhile, all these people are struggling and suffering and they're going
yes,
through these emotional things because it's never ending. At what point, I mean, how do we clean this up when the justice system is so broken? What are our avenues to be able
yeah.
to, people keep talking about common law. I just throw out the whole system. But I mean, is it fixable? And what are our avenues to actually get around this lawfare that is
Yeah.
so bad that the courts are ignoring the laws and implementing, they're just like not doing their duty.
Yeah. Yeah. And, people ask me all the time, like, how do we fix the system? The system is fine. I think the system actually works. The problem is you have people in very powerful places that are abusing it and that are allowing things to happen that should not be happening. And I'm specifically talking about judges right now. I mean, you have all of these judges. I mean, look at here in Washington, D.C., where President Trump has many cases pending because these judges are allowing activists to muddy the courts, muddy up President Trump's agenda. They're trying to throw sand in the gears, and the courts are allowing it. And so, ideally, I would love, this is not in the realm of possibility at the moment, but I would love to see one or two judges impeached and just say, hey, look, we do have checks and balances in this country. And if you are going to abuse your position on the bench, you're going to get impeached. And the reason I say it's not in the realm of possibility at the moment is because even if the House impeached a judge, you need two-thirds of the Senate to convict. And we can't even get a continuing resolution passed out of the Senate. There's no way you're going
Well,
to get that out of the Senate.
well, it's kind of like, and I know I like to use sports analogy because I coach sports and played sports my whole life.
Yeah.
And sports is so trivial compared to this. This is real life consequences.
Yeah.
But if you have a referee who is just decide they're not going to follow the rules, they're just going to make up their own rules and do their own thing, then the game is complete crap, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah. And the way to rectify that is that referee gets fired, never gets hired again,
Yeah.
right?
You're
So
exactly right.
the game is okay, but if you got a ref that's not implementing it, then it
100%.
doesn't, you might as well not even play the game, right?
That's a
That's
perfect
where,
analogy.
yeah, and that's why people are like, well, I don't even want to use the system if they're not going to follow the rules of the system.
Yeah, that's 100% right. That's a very good analogy. The system itself is not broken. It's the people that are in positions of power. We are seeing the Supreme Court finally kind of push back on that a little bit. President Trump has had a lot of wins in the Supreme Court, which have um, I mean, that's good, right? That it's stopping the chaos, but there's so much chaos at the lower level. And so, um, Chief Justice Roberts, I don't see him as, a bulwark of justice, but he's the Chief Justice and he's the one that needs to be sending the message to the lower courts. Hey, rein in your political activity, meaning your political decisions. You're not gonna like what's coming down. But short of the Chief Justice taking a stand saying, hey, lower courts, do your job correctly, actually follow the law, or short of Congress, the whole Congress, um, impeaching a judge or passing legislation. They can pass legislation limiting the role of the lower courts because the lower courts are not constitutional. It's the Supreme Court that's constitutional. The lower courts follow from statute. So they could legislate, but if you don't have a court that's going to do its job and you don't have Congress that's going to do its job, it's going to make it really hard for the president to do his job because the other two branches they're not providing the checks and balances that they're designed to create.
Well, and that's the problem with the court system. We're all stuck with it. So, like in a
Yeah.
business, if you order a wedding cake and they just make whatever they want, you want it to be pink and they keep giving black or whatever color,
Yeah.
I mean, they just do whatever, people wouldn't buy from them. But
Yeah.
when it comes to a court system, you have to use the flipping court system. And if it doesn't get fixed, then people don't have any other recourse other
Mhm.
than, I mean, what is our recourse
Yeah.
if the system, and it's not, you say it's not broken, maybe it's another, it's, what's the right word for it? If they're not actually following the Constitution, then where's the point? It's almost like these judges, if there's a pattern of not following the law themselves, then
Mhm.
that should be an automatic dismissal, an
Yeah.
automatic impeachment. Just a quick break from the program. I need to share with you in urgent manner about scam gold IRAs and the important need to make sure that you're working with a trusted company in the precious metals space. I have had hundreds of people come to me now where they have lost 50, 60, 70% of their life savings in these scam gold IRAs. We are having nearly 100% success rate getting their money back. If you have put your life savings into a gold IRA, I implore you to look and see if you have been scammed. Don't trust the company that sold it to you. Make sure you understand what you can get as a buyback value for the gold or silver that you have in your IRA. If you have noticed a significant drop in what you invested, you have more than likely been scammed. We can help you, and there's no shame. Go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, fill out that form, and we will help you get your life savings back.
Well, that's why your show is so important and shows like yours that are actually talking about this because like my judge is elected, right? You vote at
Mm-hmm.
well, a lot of times off-cycle elections, but a lot of these judges are elected at the state level or at the local level. And so people need to be aware of like who are these judges? How do we get them out? And replace at the state level, you can replace the judges. It's a little bit harder at the federal level because they can't be replaced unless they're impeached. But to me, the solution is exposing all of these people. It's hard work. It's a lot. It's grunt work, doing what you're doing, pulling the information out and trying to expose it to the people, i.e. the voters that have the ability to replace these people. But we need better people in these positions. I mean, that's
It's
that.
just bottom line. I went
Yeah.
through it. I suffered from it, with and
Yeah.
watched and personally had to deal with the fact of what it was like. So
Yeah.
I got to learn firsthand, like you. There's nothing like learning firsthand, going, wow, this is actually happening. And this can happen to any one of us, and it's really harming us.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're an attorney with Judicial Watch. What are the kinds of things that are happening? I mean, people are like, well, what are you talking about? Why is it so bad? Talk about some of the patterns of behavior that you're seeing so
Yeah.
that people get an idea of just how extreme some of this behavior is.
Yeah. So in my case, And I've got a lot of examples from my case, but it's all over the place. But in my case, we had filed that anti-SLAPP motion, and we were required to file it within 45 days of the indictment, meaning we had to file it in June of 2024, which we did. And the reason why you have such a short timeline is because the motion is designed to get rid of the case quickly. Because if your constitutional rights are being violated, we want you to get out of that quickly, right? And so we filed it right away. Like I said, it's still lingering. The court has not even held the second half of the hearing yet. But the original judge who heard the original hearing, he was the one that sat on it. The hearing, I want to say, was in July or August, sometime. And then he sat on it for months and months and months, and we couldn't hear anything. We're like, what is going on with this judge? Why aren't we getting a ruling on our motion?
Well,
Well,
talk about, hold on, before you give us like at least a brief description on why you're even in court so that the people who don't know
sure.
understand.
Sure. So I'm a criminal defendant with the alternate electors in Arizona, and they were trying to say that the activity of the alternate electors, the Trump electors in Arizona, was illegal. It is not. What they were doing, the law requires the electors to vote on December 14th. Like that date is written in statute. Well, on December 14th of 2020, in my case, Arizona, and this is true for all the other states, those cases were being challenged. And so we didn't know who was going to come out the winner because there was still litigation ongoing about problems with the election. So if Donald Trump had actually won that litigation, he would have won that state. And so in order to comply with federal election law that requires the electors to meet on December 14th, the Trump electors met on December 14th to create the Trump slate of electors that could be used in the event that Donald Trump actually was successful in his litigation and won.
Yep.
That's simple, right?
Yep.
It's been done before. It happened in 1960 when John F. Kennedy originally lost Hawaii to Richard Nixon. He was challenging Hawaii. He created an alternate slate of electors. Ultimately, he was successful, and that alternate slate of electors was the one that was actually counted. So there's historic precedent for it. They followed exactly what Kennedy did in 1960. And according to Arctic Frost, the stuff that came out from Arctic Frost, and what the prosecutors are alleging now, the prosecutors are alleging that that was fraudulent and forgery. We're all charged with 9 felony counts of conspiracy to commit forgery.
Wow. But it's just made up to try to scare
Yes,
you into
yes,
not doing it. And they know that. They just want to create fear. And that's where the not only should they not be allowed to do this, but the punishment for using their power to create fear in others who have a lot less power
yeah,
should be a higher crime. Like they should have,
yes,
because because they're using their power position to harm
yeah.
others.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's what they're doing. So we filed our anti-SLAPP and said, "Hey, look, there's nothing even close to being unlawful about any of this. It's clearly being brought for political purposes. This case needs to be thrown out." The judge ruled in favor on the first half. He ruled in favor of us and then sat on it. I'm sorry, the first judge did not rule in our favor. He didn't rule at all. He didn't rule. The hearing was in August.
Why?
Well, I'm about to tell you. So the election is in November, right? November 5th of this year, I think. And then on November 7th, a local reporter in Arizona, and judge still has not ruled on it. He wanted to get through the election because he was trying to create all this turmoil for conservatives. Then on November 7th, a local reporter in Arizona got a hold of the judge's emails. And the judge had emailed the entire bench in Maricopa County, as well as the county commissioners, saying, Trump supporters are no better than Nazis. They needed to be treated like Nazis. We have to get Kamala Harris across the finish line. We got to support her. We got to support all these DEI policies. Basically, he sends out an email telling all the court to like stomp on Trump supporters. This is my judge. He's supposed to give me a fair and impartial trial, and he emails the whole bench to say I'm a Nazi and need to
While
be
he's
treated like a
behaving
Nazi.
like while he's behaving like
Yes,
this. Yeah,
exactly
it's just
right.
there's no introspection
Yeah.
on their own behavior that
Well,
is.
I think you raise a good point. Like, I think for so long, the Democrat Party has kind of held the position of if you're a good person and you're loving and you're kind and you care about people and you just want world peace and you just love everybody, well, then you're a Democrat and you're morally superior to people who don't want what you want.
Yeah, so
And
if
then
you're
that is,
loving and kind and you're morally superior, you can be as evil and hatred filled
yes,
and
that's been the
bad as
message
you can.
for
It's like,
decades.
Like, I'm so
Yes.
loving and kind, so I'm going to be mean and not kind because I'm
Yeah.
loving and kind. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
No, I had someone tell me this is totally off topic, but kind of funny and exactly what you're saying. There was an event locally here that I had been invited to, and by Democrats, like very liberal Democrats. It was not a political event, just a local party. They didn't know my background. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know I'd worked for President Trump or anything. And they found out a couple days before the event that I was conservative. And they told me,
Ooh,
they
how
said,
dare
no,
you?
no, I know. And I was gonna go. I was like, yeah, great. I'd love to hang out with you guys. I know that I live in Washington, D.C., right? Everybody's liberal. I know everybody's liberal, but I still want to socialize with,
For sure.
people.
Why? Yeah, why not?
Yeah. And so I go, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd love to come. That'd be great. And a few days before the event, they were like, oh, we just found out you're conservative. And I go, yeah, this was not a political event. It was like a party, right? And they just found out I was conservative. And I go, yeah. I go, does that bother you? And they go, no, 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 it doesn't bother us. And I go, okay. I have assumed all of you are liberal. I knew you were liberal, but I don't care. Um, like I'm capable of hanging out with liberals. And they go, yeah, we love everybody. We're very inclusive, very, very inclusive. But we think it'd be a good idea if you
Except
didn't
in this
come.
case.
They asked me to not come.
Oh my
And I was like,
gosh. Yeah.
okay.
That's
And
what everybody's experiencing, right? But you know
yeah,
what? The people like Nick Fuentes and those
yeah,
things, they're making everybody to be out like that. That's what they I am more on the right only because I like small government and
yeah,
freedom and all that.
yeah,
And I don't buy into some of that other. So I don't think social issues are the only reasons why you want small. I mean, I don't think social issue to me. I know everybody has different opinions, but
sure,
my reasons for being in this is the how the justice system operates, how the financial system operates, how big the government is. All these things that I think are more or they are very important. And we've gotten to the point where only the social issues matter. It's like, come on, that's stupid.
Well, I think they're just trying to divide us because they realize that there's more of us, meaning everyday Americans. There's more of us than the political class. And so they're trying to divide us by, are you a male? Are you a female? Are you a female who used to be a male or a male who used to be a female? Or
That's
are
right.
you like, and so they're just trying to break us up into smaller
I
groups
agree.
so that we can't actually unify to vote out the people who belong out of office.
Because
But
you would probably have more in common with those liberals who kicked you out of the party because you're just the devil incarnate for,
right.
you know,
I
they
forgot to
pro
tell them.
yeah. Well, no, but you probably if we would just sit down, we'd realize on a personal level, we probably have a lot more in common.
Yeah,
And
and we weren't going to talk politics. I wasn't going to sit there and talk politics at a party that I know nobody agrees with me on. But I don't know. I don't know what they thought. I think,
that's too
you know what?
bad. It's
I think
just
they just genuinely hate people who think differently than them. The people that put the signs out in front, and they're all over DC, the signs in their front yard that say hate has no place here. Those people, yeah,
they
they're
really
filthy.
hate people. You know
They're
what?
the most hateful people.
I was in China with somebody I went and did this delegation, and a group of them were communist people. I
Mhm.
wasn't. I was, and
Well,
then
I
there was
mean,
a
you're
group
in
that was,
China.
yeah,
Like,
no, but yeah, we went there. I went there with Cynthia McKinney, and she kind of led this coalition, and a lot of the people were also libertarian leaning or just freedom, independent minded people too. And I wanted to go there with my daughter because she has a degree in Chinese and computer science. And so I wanted her to go there and experience it. And I got to be friends with Cynthia McKinney. And so I'm there and there were some communist people. I'm like, wow, I do not get, this is the extreme. But we got to sit and talk to these people. And one of them, and I kid you not, in the nightly conversations, he did a presentation, and he believed that the bourgeoisie, how do you pronounce it, the wealthy class, the
yeah,
entrepreneurial class, they need to be eliminated so that they could bring in this communist, and they basically think they need to take out, murder, and slaughter a whole bunch of people in order to bring in this loving utopia.
right,
You know
right,
what I
right,
mean?
right.
It's like, how does that work? I mean, literally, we had to have some conversations, me and my kids, because they were like, Mom, I can't. It was jaw-dropping to sit through and listen to this. But some of these internal, and you would never hear it publicly. They
Right.
never talk about that publicly. But in behind closed doors, they were willing to talk about it. It
Yeah,
was
no, it's
incredible.
really wild. it's like a weird mental distortion of like, in order to be loving and kind and, this peaceful utopia, we have to kill everybody. And we have to kill everybody who thinks differently than us.
We
And
have to be a mass murderer so that
right.
we can be this loving, peaceful person.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's
what?
really, really bizarre. Yeah.
I know that it was. Okay, enough of that. So you've been seeing so many other things, but you were also deeply connected to the Mar-a-Lago raid
Yes.
and saw that firsthand. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people just saw it and it's just a political politics, but it was way more than that, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I just have a book out about it. It's called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. President Trump did the forward for it. So I'm really excited about it. I'd love everybody to get it. And I've got text messages and emails and all of that. I was the custodian of record for Mar-a-Lago at the time. I was the staff attorney and asked to to join this case as basically as a witness, to be the custodian of record. And so I was one of two people, two attorneys that met with the Department of Justice and the FBI at Mar-a-Lago about 2 months prior to respond to this grand jury subpoena. We met with them. Everything you saw in the press is completely wrong. The left press is just, they're flat out lying about what happened with all of that. We were incredibly cooperative. President Trump came to the meeting for a few, he popped in and popped out briefly, but he made it a point to meet with them himself and say, you can see whatever you want. If you want to see, if you want a tour of Mar-a-Lago, we'll give you a tour of Mar-a-Lago. Whatever you want, we'll show you whatever we want, whatever you want. And they asked to see the storage room. We took them down to the storage room and let them look through the storage room and see where it is. We turned over some documents that we believed were responsive to the subpoena that they never should have had in the first place, and they never should have gotten a warrant to raid Mar-a-Lago. There was no probable cause. There was absolutely no probable cause of any criminal activity, but they somehow, I say somehow as if it's a surprise that a Washington, D.C. grand jury would, I'm sorry. That was the other thing that I think the media has not reported well. The whole case about Mar-a-Lago was here in Washington, D.C. The subpoena to look and see what President Trump had, that came out of Washington, D.C. This was a grand jury in Washington, D.C. that they created. And the media doesn't report on that because the case was actually brought in Florida. And the reason they had to bring the case of Florida, no, they didn't want to prosecute Donald Trump in Florida. They wanted to prosecute Donald Trump here in DC because they could get a conviction here. There's not a chance in where that they're going to get any conviction out of Florida. But the reason they had to switch the grand jury down to Florida was because they could not get an indictment in Washington, D.C. They did not have any evidence of a crime that would suffice in Washington, D.C. So they had to move it to Florida and create a stupid obstruction of justice charge. I mean, 34 of them or 39 of them, whatever it is, obstruction of justice.
39.
Yeah. Basically saying, hey, you tried to interfere with our investigation. They forgot to mention that the investigation never should have been opened in the first place. But the whole thing, if Jack Smith
But
had
okay,
never,
okay, hold on a second. What possibly could have been an interference? You guys were all saying, well, how
they
do we
lied.
cooperate with you? They lied. They just made it up. See,
They made
that's
it
the
up.
point. But why not make stuff up if there's never consequences?
Right. Well, and that goes back to what we said originally, right? Is that the Department of Justice is getting braver and braver and braver with how extreme they're willing to be using that department to their own devices. And every time something like this happens, there are no consequences. And so they just keep getting bolder and bolder. And that's the concern is, okay, so now they've raided Mar-a-Lago. What's worse than that? What are they going to do after that? Start creating gulags, for everybody?
Did
I mean,
that
they already,
create fear in you a little bit to watch people abuse their power to such an extreme? I mean, what
oh, a
were
lot. I thought I was going to prison. Both with the Mar-a-Lago case, because I was the one that signed for all the documents, right? I was the one that was signing my name to the stuff.
you were like the person there? You're like, holy shit, I'm literally dealing
Yeah.
with these people that are deranged.
Yes. Yeah. And thankfully, I kept very good records. I kept very good emails. I kept all my text messages. I had everything, straight and narrow, which you can see in the book. Um, so they didn't indict me because I had recorded everything that I had done and why I had done it. And in the press, they tried to make it look like I had intentionally tried to deceive the Department of Justice. That was never true. They know it was never true. I've got the emails to show it, and I told them to their face when we met exactly what was happening. And when they interrogated me on it, I said that to them. I said, I was honest with you. I told you to your face what happened. And they were like, yeah, like they acknowledged it. And so they just wanted to smear me in the press to lead the American people to believe that we were hiding something from them or that we were deceiving them. And none of that was ever true.
So where is it at now? I mean, is this, I obviously, Trump being president, he knows all this stuff. He
Yeah.
watched all this stuff. And
That's
so
why he
now
was raging about them because he's like, it's all fake.
it is all fake. It was all fake. And now they're walking this lawfare tightrope of wanting to do what's right and clean this up. But while you're cleaning this up, they're trying to smear you as a tyrant while they
Yeah.
were the ones acting like, and so there's this balancing act of not
Yeah.
being a tyrant, but actually cleaning things up because it's important for the American people and for this country.
100%. I think it's great that Lindsey Halligan has indicted both Comey and Letitia James. I think Brennan's probably next. Bolton was indicted, I think, in Maryland. So all of these people belong in prison. They need to understand that you cannot abuse your power, you cannot abuse your authority and get away with it. Um,
How about
I
like
can,
Victoria Newland, who would, I mean, did she do anything that, what, because I mean, she'd go into a country, next thing you know, there's a flipping civil war. There was memes
yeah.
about her. Watch out for this woman. She
Oh
comes,
my,
your country's ready to have a civil war.
that's scary. Yeah, no, I mean, I think all of that's fair game. I think the Department of, in my opinion, the Department of Justice is being way too conservative right now. They're conservative. I think more people need to be at the very least investigated. And I'm not, I have been prosecuted. I've been targeted by my government. I'm not a fan of the government doing it. I don't like it. The problem that we have is there's only two ways for America to navigate this, for America to get out of this crazy lawfare cycle. The first way is that the people who started the process and the people who started the abuse can acknowledge their faults and say, you know what, we went way
That's
too
not going to
far.
happen.
That's the problem, right? I mean, that's the easiest way. That's the easiest way for America. If everybody just says, okay, we've gone too far, let's everybody stop doing this. But to your point, one, it's not going to happen. Two, it hasn't happened. They haven't done that. They've never acknowledged that they did anything wrong. They've never even pretended to say, we should back up a little bit. So then the only other way to do it is through prosecution. So, okay, well, if you're not going to agree to set your arms down and agree to not prosecute us all in the future, the only other option is to then prosecute you. And that's the game DOJ is playing right now.
And put together, maybe Congress put together some things on
Yeah.
standards that if you violate these standards, it doesn't
They
matter
already
what party,
exist.
they already exist.
Those
But
standards already exist.
so it's your obligation. Here's the deal. It's the obligation. If someone didn't, and if they push back and say this is political interference or whatever, no, but you actually broke the law. It's not like, so many other things, the lawfare stuff where they make stuff up. If they really did and it's undermining the entire system, you have to do this because
Yeah.
that's your duty in office to clean this up. Just a short break from the program to share with you an amazing peptide to help you lose weight. It's stronger than Ozempic. And why? It's because it not only reduces your appetite, but it also burns fat. These other GLP-1s on the market, they do not burn fat. They just reduce your appetite. This one, retatrutide, is stronger. It's considered a next generation peptide because of that. And man, does this work. I've been using it for 2.5 weeks and I've already lost 11 pounds, and I cut my dose in half because I was losing weight too quickly. And that kind of freaked me out, to be honest. And so I also am taking this 5 amino 1MQ in capsule form. This helps by making sure that you lose fat, not muscle. And so in conjunction, I'm using both of these. This will work whether you have this or not. And I am telling you, it's amazing. If you are interested in getting this, I have the link below, or you can go to sarahwestall.com under shop. You can use the coupon code Sarah to save 10%. If you have questions about your own use, you should either consult your doctor or you can join Dr. Diane's tribe. And I have a link below to that. It is only $1 for the first week. You can ask her any question you want and get all your answers to this, how to take an injectable. And there shouldn't be any fear in doing that. It is easy and straightforward. Go to sarahwestall.com under shop or use the link below. And remember to use coupon code Sarah.
100%. And the difference between lawfare and true justice is the focus on the outcome of the case. In true justice, the outcome of the case matters. If you're prosecuting someone for committing a crime, you're punishing them, you're deterring, future crime. The outcome matters for justice. With all of this lawfare, the outcome doesn't matter. What they want out of it is they want to take Donald Trump off the campaign trail. They want to drain his resources. They want to defame him. They want to give the media talking points to tell the public why they shouldn't be voting for him. They want to scare other conservatives out of supporting him. The goal of the lawfare is anything other than the outcome of the case. And unfortunately, we're just seeing a lot of that.
Well, when is it that the people say, you know what, this is the politics isn't so important and winning isn't so important that we're willing to trade the future of this country just so we can win at a political game? Are
Yeah,
people capable of being mature enough to get to that point?
I think the American people are there. I mean, we might be on different sides of it, but I think for the most part, we're there. Even on the left, I don't think the majority of the left
I agree with you
wants
on
this
that.
constant, like, they don't
Yeah.
like it either. It's just, the radicals, whatever, you're always going to have radicals. Um, the problem is, I don't think the people in power have gotten there because it's never affected them, right? And that's always the problem is once you get into power, it doesn't touch you. And so you're now, inoculated from it. And and I hate to say I love Pam Bondi, but until Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche and Stanley Woodward, until they care about the little people, I
The
don't know.
little people will suffer until they care about them, but that's why power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely
Yeah.
because you're so distant from what it is that you're actually implementing. And the
Yeah.
a republic, a representative republic, is supposed to represent the people at the lowest possible place so that you get
Yep.
away from that. And now we've gotten to the point where they're so disconnected from the people, but then the people have no other they can't resort to anything. It's almost like they're trying to fuel a revolution almost because the media because people don't have any recourse.
Yeah. Well, the common ground that we all have now is we don't have recourse, right? Is
That's right.
we're all being oppressed by a government. And so I think that's why they're working really hard to divide us. They're working hard to sow hate and discontent. Um, you know, I I think that's what they're doing. I don't think it's the majority of Americans, even on the left. I don't think the majority of Americans on the left want to hate everybody, want to hate the right. I think everybody just wants peace and quiet and wants to get on. I think everybody wants to, run their business, do their job, focus on their career, focus on their family, raise a family, go to church,
That's
do
right.
whatever. They don't want to be paying attention to the government, but they have to because the government is so horribly impacting everybody's lives right now. Um,
It is, yeah. Well, and we have this economic reset that's lingering, or actually, maybe it's already in place, that's fundamentally affecting people. We have inflation. People aren't able to actually pay their mortgage, eat, get jobs. I mean,
yeah.
people are struggling.
Yeah. No, I think they are. And I think there's an element of, wait, we fought so hard for President Trump. Why isn't it better?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it's not. And I would go further than that and say, I don't think it's entirely President Trump or his administration. I think the biggest obstacle President Trump has to his agenda is Republicans. I don't think it's Democrats. I mean, you have a Republican House, you have a Republican Senate, you have a Republican Supreme Court, a majority of governors in the US are Republican, a majority of attorney generals in the United States are Republican, and yet Republicans are blaming Democrats. Republicans are the problem.
Well, how do
So
we get past that? Because that was the issue of his first presidency.
mhm.
Now it's the same thing.
the
Why
well,
are they the problem when they have the power right now? They
because
only have it for 2 years. They're going to get voted out,
well, they I don't
more
think
than likely.
I think most of them think they won't get voted
But
because
I
most
mean, to
people
have
don't
the
get.
majority, the majority usually
Oh
flips
yeah, yeah,
after.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Unfortunately, Republicans are so conservative. They've learned that if I do nothing, doing nothing is better than doing something and getting, bad press, getting targeted for primary, whatever. And the left right now is so crazy. The left, like
they
the
are
things that the left wants to do is so
extreme.
bananas and so extreme that all Republicans have to do is go, well, we're better than that. And people are like, Yeah. Okay. And they're voting
Well,
Republican.
you don't have a choice. I mean, when they
I
want to
know.
take like an art, when they want to take young people and do the
Castrate them
transgender,
without,
yeah, without
without,
parent, like in my state, there's sanctuaries, so parents can lose their parental rights if they don't allow their 16-year-old to get some kind of surgery without. I mean, they used to go through these strict multi-year process and be really responsible to make sure that this is really what the person wants, right?
yeah,
And then 99% plus were happy with it. Now they don't do anything. I mean, there's none of
they do
that.
nothing. They do nothing.
And
Yeah.
that somehow is okay. I mean, we've
Well, because
completely
they care.
lost our minds.
No, they care more about keeping their seat than they do serving the people who elected them. I mean, I would love to be wrong on that. I don't know any other explanation as to why Republicans consistently get nothing done. And it's because they don't want to do anything because it's one, it's easier. Doing nothing is easier than doing something. And two, they don't want to do anything that could cause them to get challenged in an election. And then they can sit in their seats and go, look it, we're not as crazy as those guys. And
Well,
it's
they
like,
can
okay,
roll up their sleeves and they can talk a big talk and then do nothing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what we're seeing. Please tell me how I'm wrong, and please tell me, another way to fix this. But I think until we primary Republicans that are doing nothing, this is what we're going to get.
But are we ever going to get out of this cycle? If that's what they always do, nothing,
It's going to
then
break. I mean, something has to break. It can't, this is unsustainable. So yeah, something's going to break. And I do think Republicans are in for a reckoning because I think I am the Republican base, right? Like I am MAGA. I worked for President Trump. Like I worked at the RNC. I was senior election counsel at the RNC. Like I am the Republican base. And I'm looking at the Republican Party going, you guys need to fix something or America will come for you next. They've already come for the Democrats, right? They already spanked the Democrats in 2024. I think Republicans are in for a rude awakening if they don't start to actually serve the people who elected them.
well, I think that Trump is being put into that box. It
Yeah,
looks like to the average person, it looks like this was what he always meant to do. He was a big, politicians, they never trust politicians.
yeah,
So now it looks like he just came in, he was playing a big game, and he never meant to do any of the things he said he was going to do anyways. That's how the media, or that's how the
right.
operation is
And whose fault
portraying
is
him.
that? It's
Who's
Republicans because they're not doing they're not fulfilling his agenda. They're just not.
I can imagine it'd be very frustrating, but that's how they're spinning him.
Yeah. And the Republicans are letting him do it, letting it happen.
Yep. And they're squandering their ability to do anything right now. And if people start questioning them, are they blackmailed? Do they care? Are they really
Well, I think
this
those are great
afraid?
questions.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows? All we know is they're not doing anything and it's weird. You look at our government right now and it looks weird. Like,
that's right.
why aren't you doing anything? Why is Congress out? Why is the House out? The House has already passed the CR. Why is the Senate not passing the CR? And
The
why is
CR. Tell people what the CR is so they
the
understand.
continuing resolution to open the
Yes.
government?
Yep.
Because I mean the
Yep.
government shut down,
Yep. Yep.
Senate's refusing to fund it. Why? Like why?
Well, and the other thing is this is getting to the point where it's the longest the government's ever been shut down, and people are saying, and a lot of people are like, well, it's great the government shut down, but there's a point where it starts to not be great, right?
Mhm.
Where
It gets
you
dangerous.
it gets really dangerous, and if you aren't funding certain operations, it can really hurt the country.
Yeah, well, look at the airports right now. Right before Thanksgiving, we're having all of these airports shut down because TSA agents are walking off the job because they're not being paid. And then you can't get on your flight. I mean, you can look up Houston, Atlanta. I mean, we're seeing it all over the place where people just can't get their flights because airport operations is shutting down because the federal aspect of it's not funded.
Well,
So,
but how do we, okay, but it makes it look like the Republicans are at fault because, and you're saying they probably are, because they're the ones that have the majority. So the
well, the Republicans
Democrats
have
can,
passed it. The Republicans are the ones voting for it. So I think even like CNN and maybe a little bit MSNBC, at least CNN is acknowledging, hey, the Democrats are the ones that are keeping the government shut down. They're the ones voting no to not fund the government. Every Republican has been voting to fund the government. So it's like,
okay. So
so
is it becoming obvious to the average person? Because when I listen to my NPR,
Yeah.
I promise you guys, I'm doing it because I want to understand. From their perspective, even though they're not it to their people, they think it's the Republicans.
Well, that's probably true. I'm sure they're lying to their audience.
Of
Um,
course they are. That's why I was
yeah.
saying it's hard to
It is
listen to them.
a feat of mental gymnastics to blame Republicans for this. The Democrats are the ones voting no. Every single Republican is voting yes.
So are they, the theory is that they are trying to create riots and civil unrest, that
Republicans are?
the Democrats are.
Oh, v very possible. Very, very possible. Yeah. Because Democrats, I mean, they thrive in chaos, right? They're like, they manufacture a crisis and then they solve it, right? So I wouldn't be surprised, but I think people are sick of the
They're
riots, sick
sick
of
of it.
fighting.
They're
Like,
sick of it. Do you think, but people, will they? I mean, can they instigate that? Because it seems the pattern is such, it's
mhm.
when people don't have food, they drop their
Yeah,
fear, and so is it
yeah.
possible that the food stamps, I think they carved out an exception where they're going to allow people, make sure that people get their food.
They were talking about it. I don't think that was approved. I'd have to
Oh,
check recently.
gosh.
Well, the problem with, and I actually agree with not passing that just because it alleviates the pain of opening the government, right?
I
Like
see what
paying
you're
the
saying.
military, like just you either fund the government or you don't. And Republicans want to fund it. Republicans are voting to have the SNAP benefits and all that. And if you just pick and choose the little pieces that can be funded, then there's no reason to reopen the government, you know? And it does beg the question that it's like, if we can function without all of this government activity, why are we funding that activity anyway?
That's right. I think there's a certain amount of that, and then there's a certain amount of underlying things that are really suffering that you're going to
Yeah.
have to. It's there are infrastructure that needs to be funded. Otherwise, things. It's that's a conservative principle too. You have to fund the things that keep a healthy system
Yeah.
going.
We need to be funding whether it's TSA or some functioning security within the airports. There's basic law enforcement functions, obviously the military. But yeah, Democrats are the ones voting no.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, what are insiders saying? Since you get to talk to them, what
Yeah.
is the judicial watch? What are people saying? What are they fearful of behind closed doors as
Yeah.
to where things are going? Or are they not? I mean, are they so disconnected they're not, or are they?
Well, I think Republicans want the government open. So like anybody that I talked to was like, yeah, we're trying to open it. Like we're voting yes every day to reopen the government. And Democrats are voting no. I don't know what the Democrat end game is. I don't know what they think they get out of it. What they say they want out of it is they want, millions of dollars of funding for LGBTQ stuff in Nigeria and dance lessons in, Laos. Like really weird.
Are they really adding all that stuff to the
Yeah.
thing? And they say
Yeah, those
these
are all
have to be
conditions.
in there?
Yeah, those are all
Those are
conditions.
conditions?
Those are all conditions of the CR. Yes, just the continuing resolution. We're not talking about negotiating the budget. We're just talking about the continuing resolution.
Dance lessons in another country is seriously one of the
Yeah,
conditions.
yeah,
And they're
yeah.
not willing, even when they said, can we at least move this? They won't do it.
No, they won't do it. And they
But is
want,
that a cover for an CIA operation or something when you
probably,
name it that? Because that doesn't make
probably,
sense. Okay.
right, probably. And then they want medical care for all illegal aliens, and they want food, like free food and medical care for all illegal aliens. Which is weird because we don't give that to American citizens. But anyway, that's what they want. And then they say they want to extend some of the Obamacare, like programs are set to end, I think, at the end of this year, and they want those extended. And so the Republicans' position has been that's all stuff that needs to be negotiated in the budget. Right now, we just want to either and they say, oh, Republicans aren't conceding. Republicans have conceded by keeping the Biden era financial policies going. Because when Republicans vote yes to keep the government open, they're voting for Biden's budget. Like this was all stuff from the previous administration. It's stuff that Republicans don't want, but they're conceding it to keep the government open. And Democrats are saying, no, we want more, we want more. And
Well,
Republicans,
Democrats are always going to win if the Republicans are weak. If they're
That's the thing.
afraid to do something and the Democrats know it, they smell weakness
Yeah.
and they're going to take advantage of it every time. And this is what's happening.
So that's the thing. I think as long as Republicans don't cave, if Republicans cave and give them anything and open the government, they will end up owning this whole thing. So I think Republicans just need to stay strong and say, no, it's called a clean CR, a clean resolution, meaning no changes, just continue the current budget, for another 90 days or whatever the next deadline is. And Democrats aren't willing to pass that. If Republicans back off on that, I think they're going to end up owning the whole thing and it's going to look really bad. So Republicans just need to stick to their guns and say, nope, we're passing a clean CR, nothing else. Nobody's negotiating anything either way. And I don't know how long Democrats are going to hold out.
Wow, their own people have to push them, and the truth has to get out that they're the ones not voting for it. It's pretty amazing. But your book is incredible. There's so many behind the scenes things that people had no idea. Give us another little tidbit that's in your book that people are going to get if they go and get it.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think real fast of. I think the behind the scenes stuff on what's happening in these state cases, I think is really important, which we talked about earlier. And then, the Dominion case. I was sued by Dominion for $1.6 billion.
You
And
personally were sued for 1.6
I
billion?
was personally
How
sued for
can they
1.6.
sue for somebody if you're not even worth, let's say you're worth 2 million. I don't know what you're
Yeah, well,
worth.
they're claiming
But
that's
how
what the
can they
damages were.
claim yeah, how can they claim to sue how could they claim you for 1.6 billion?
Well, they were just claiming that that's how much I damaged them. And what they were claiming that I did. And I actually never. There were three aspects to the complaint against me. One was I interviewed I was a reporter at the time. I interviewed Rudy Giuliani and was asking him about updates on their process, and he was talking about the machines. They didn't like that. I never made the statements, which it's not defamation if I don't make the statements.
Well, and they're intimidating a journalist.
Yes. And then the second one was I interviewed a lesser known guy, it's basically like a social media influencer. I interviewed him. He said some things they didn't like. Again, I didn't make the statements, but that was that. And then the third thing was I did mention Dominion, but I was able to cite my source because the Maricopa County supervisors had written a letter to the Arizona Senate saying, we can't give you the administrative passwords to the machines. We don't have them. Only Dominion controls the machines. And they put that in a letter. And so I reported that and I was sued for that. And then I produced the letter and they were like, oh, we didn't know it was true.
Well,
And so
gosh, it's like they can just sue. That's lawfare, though. They just
it
sue.
drug me,
It's
they
total
drug me through
intimidation.
hell.
It's a total intimidation of a journalist
Yes.
because they can. And it's
Yes.
not any different than in other countries where they take them out. They just kill journalists. It's a very dangerous
Yeah.
profession. And in this country, they're doing it through this.
Right.
It's one step away from that next act.
Yes.
If we don't stop them, they'll take that next step, I think.
100%. And I went through hell for 4 years. They were defaming me. CNN, MSNBC, everybody was reporting saying I'm a liar. I can't be trusted. I'm not a trustworthy news source. Like, just absolutely tried to destroy my reputation. 4 years later,
You
we
were
give them,
telling the truth.
and they go, oh, she was telling the truth. And they just dismissed me. There was no settlement. There was nothing. They were just like, oh, we'll dismiss her. After 4 years of like trying to destroy me. Yeah.
I get that. Holy crap. Okay, where can people buy your book?
It's available on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, wherever books are sold. It's called Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare, forward by Donald Trump.
And do you have a website for it?
Yes, ChristinaBobb.com, BOBB.
Awesome, then get your book there. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I appreciate you using your platform to talk about it.